Tonight, a historic wave of protests is sweeping across the United States. From New York City's Times Square to small rural towns and even overseas, millions of Americans are in the streets, all sending a defiant message to President Donald Trump. No kings. In one of the largest nationwide demonstrations in recent memory, ordinary people are rallying to defend democracy against what they fear is a slide into authoritarian rule. Welcome to our special coverage of the No Kings protests of October 18th, 2025. A day that may go down in history. Anchor pauses, the intensity builds. Over the next 20 minutes, we'll break down what sparked this movement, what happened today on the ground in over 2,600 locations, and why these protests are resonating in every corner of the country and even around the world. The No Kings movement didn't emerge overnight. It's the product of growing concern since the start of Trump's second term. To understand today's events, we have to rewind to a pivotal date, June 14th, 2025. On that day, President Trump's 79th birthday, his administration staged a massive military parade in Washington, D.C., celebrating the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary. To many, the parade felt less like a patriotic celebration and more like something out of an authoritarian regime. In response, a broad coalition of citizens and advocacy groups organized the first nationwide No Kings Day protests on June 14th, deliberately timed to coincide with Trump's military parade. The message was bold and symbolic. America fought a revolution to have no kings, and we will not accept authoritarian rule now. These initial June 14th demonstrations were enormous. By some estimates, over 5 million people took to the streets in around 2,100 cities and towns across all 50 states. It was one of the largest days of protest in U.S. history, with participants branding it No Kings Day. There were even solidarity rallies abroad from Canada to Europe, sometimes billed as No Dictators protests to fit local contexts. The movement's very name, No Kings, harks back to America's founding ideals, a rejection of monarchy and unchecked power. Organizers often invoke the spirit of the Founding Fathers and civil rights icons. Inspired by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy, they affirm that power belongs to the people and democracy is worth defending, echoing the vision of a just, inclusive society. The June protests set the stage, creating a template of peaceful, patriotic resistance and a coalition that vowed to keep pushing back against what they saw as Trump's authoritarian tendencies. Narrator VO. Fast forward to today, and that spark has grown into a wildfire of civic activism. Over the past 10 months since President Trump returned to the White House in January, activists say they've watched his administration take an increasingly hardline approach, ramping up authoritarian practices, as movement leaders put. This includes a blitz of controversial policies rolled out at breakneck speed, sweeping immigration crackdowns, militarization of law enforcement, attempts to muzzle dissent, and a posture that critics warn is eroding democratic norms. All of this set the stage for a second round of No Kings protests, a follow-up to June's demonstrations, planned for October 18th, 2025. Organizers spent months building a broad alliance, determined to show that June 14th was not a one-off event, but the beginning of a sustained pro-democracy movement.
Today, October 18th, 2025, the plans became reality. By mid-morning, the No Kings rallies were in full swing, unfolding in all 50 U.S. states and even beyond U.S. borders. Organizers estimate there were over 2,600 individual protest events scheduled nationwide, covering major cities, suburbs, and small towns alike. In fact, some counts put it closer to 2,700 locations once last-minute additions were included. To put that in perspective, this is even more widespread than the June protests, which spanned about 2,100 locations. Every state had multiple rallies, and U.S. territories joined in as well. And it wasn't just an American phenomenon. The day's first No Kings demonstrations actually began overseas, as supporters abroad showed solidarity. At dawn in London, a few hundred protesters gathered outside the U.S. Embassy, hoisting banners that read "No Kings" to back their American friends. Similar solidarity events popped up in cities like Madrid and Barcelona in Europe. By the time the sun rose over the United States, the protest wave had already circled the globe. Back home, the scale of participation is truly staggering. Millions of people were expected to turn out coast to coast. Early reports and expert observers suggest this could be one of the largest coordinated protest days in modern American history. Some analysts even forecast that over 3 million Americans would ultimately participate today, a number that, if confirmed, approaches the record-setting Women's March of 2017. By late afternoon, it was clear the turnout was enormous. Times Square in New York City was packed shoulder to shoulder with several thousand protesters by noon. In Atlanta, Georgia, at least 10,000 people filled the field outside the Civic Center by mid-morning, preparing to march to the state capitol. On the West Coast, huge crowds amassed in San Francisco's downtown and along Los Angeles' streets, while in the Midwest, cities like Chicago saw throngs converging in Grant Park. Even smaller towns that rarely see protests had gatherings. From Bozeman, Montana, to Port Townsend, Washington, citizens showed up with homemade signs. Organizers deliberately designated a set of anchor cities to focus media attention and resources. Places like Washington, D.C., New York, Atlanta, Chicago, San Francisco, Boston, Houston, Honolulu, and Kansas City were among the key hubs for rallies and marches. But the beauty of this movement is its decentralization. In hundreds of locales that never make national news, people still marched in front of county courthouses, in parks and town squares, echoing the same chants of "No More Kings" and "Trump Must Go." In Washington, D.C., the atmosphere was electric. Thousands of demonstrators flowed onto the National Mall and even across the bridges into the Capitol. One striking scene unfolded near Arlington National Cemetery, where a group of veterans and families walked solemnly across Memorial Bridge toward the Lincoln Memorial. They carried with them the weight of history, passing monuments to past struggles for freedom, as a reminder of what's at stake. Among them was Terrence McCormickey, a retired doctor and veteran, who said the recent sight of National Guard troops deployed in American cities made him more wary of the police presence today. In "I really don't like the crooks and conmen and religious zealots who are trying to use the country for personal gain," McCormickey told us. While they are hurting millions of people, his words captured a sentiment shared by many around him, a deep frustration with leaders perceived as corrupt and a resolve to stand up for what they see as the soul of the nation.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!